In U.S. politics, Elizabeth Warren is ending her campaign for the White House. The Massachusetts senator was seeking the Democratic nomination, but her campaign failed to catch fire with primary voters. Warren held a news conference this past hour.
I will not be running for president in 2020, but I guarantee I will stay in the fight for the hardworking folks across this country who've gotten the short end of the stick over and over. That's been the fight of my life, and it will continue to be so. One of the hardest parts of this is all those pinky promises and all those little girls who are going to have to wait 4 more years.
CBC senior Washington editor Lindsay Duncombe joins us now with more on Warren's departure and what it means. So, Lindsay, the big question everyone is asking, where Warren will throw her support. And it wasn't a very long news conference, but so far, we don't know.
No, that is something that Warren said she would not do today. She said it was time to take a breath and really think about that. I think that we have to look at Warren's supporters as not necessarily being a monolith, one group destined to go one way or the other. Certainly, she does have a lot of policies in line with the more progressive left in the race, Bernie Sanders, but she was also advocating progressive policies and the ability to get them done. And those that were leaning more Warren instead of Sanders may look instead to Joe Biden. So in terms of where those voters should go, Elizabeth Warren not saying anything on that front today. Here's what she did say.
Not today. Not today. I need some space around this, and want to take a little time to think a little more. I've been spending a lot of time right now on the question of suspending and also making sure that this works as best we can for our staff, for our team, for our volunteers.
So Senator,
I'm sorry?
It could be coming, but just not right now.
Not right now.
Warren did say that she had conversations with both Sanders and Biden before making this decision.
And so, Lindsay, let's talk more about how did Elizabeth Warren change this race for the Democratic nomination? I found it interesting just to hear her talk about how she was looking for a different lane that she thought could be successful.
Yeah, I mean, think about the kinds of policies and plans. You know, the whole phrase was, I have a plan for that we were discussing that Elizabeth Warren brought to the table. The idea of a 2% wealth tax and what that additional money could fund, including the idea of universal child care, of forgiving student debt. All of this is about a central question of eliminating income inequality in this country, which is something that Elizabeth Warren describes as a fight of her life. It is her work as a professor, her work as a senator. So the fact that we are having these discussions can be attributed to Elizabeth Warren. The fact that Mike Bloomberg is no longer in the race may be because of Elizabeth Warren and the way she eviscerated him in his first and second debates. And then there's this perennial question of, was sexism part of the fact that this diverse field of candidates? Remember, at the beginning of the race into who would be the Democratic nominee for president, it was the most diverse field in terms of race and the highest number of women involved. Who's left now? 2 elderly white men. And Warren was asked if she thought that gender played a role in her poor standing. Here was her answer.
Gender in this race, that is the trap question for every woman. If you say, yeah, there was sexism in this race, everyone says, whiner. And if you say, no, there was no sexism, about a bazillion women think, what planet do you live on?
Now, what planet are we on now? The planet of the Democratic race as we head into more primaries on Tuesday. It is a race with two front runners, essentially. That is Joe Biden, former Vice President, Bernie Sanders, independent senator from Vermont, running as a Democrat. And the next chance for voters to have their say with all these other candidates out of the race, the field really winnowed, will be next Tuesday.
All right, we'll be watching, Lindsay. Thank you. The CBC's Lindsay Duncombe live in Washington.